The following is a presentation of NoVA hackers at ShmooCon Epilogue 2014, hosted by Mach37, brought to you by Compute Cycle.
Welcome to the afternoon talk. Today I'm going to be talking about a tool that I wrote in Python that's hopefully going to help out red teamers on web applications and web app developers. The tool is called BACKFIL. It stands for Backup Files Locator, and it's going to try to help you find the files you forgot about on your web server. So a little bit about me, who I am. I'm Lord Sybat on the forums. I'm NoVA hacker also. 10-year Air Force veteran. Got out of the service to actually do more in security. Senior pen tester at a company where I work at and do web apps all day. Look at web apps mostly. We're moving more into doing network security and stuff like that, but I've done that for a while now. I also helped discover the cross-site scripting vulnerability 0-day and the CollabNet software, and that was a pretty interesting one. So a little bit about the talk, and it looks like a lot, but it'll go by pretty fast. I'm going to give an overview real quick about the web application methodology if you've never seen it from OWASP. How do temporary and backup files actually even happen to get on the server at all? What does it look like in the browser when you find one? What this tool's going to help you do? How does it fit into your testing? A roadmap for the tool, some success stories where it's helped me out, comparing it to some other tools, where to get it, how to prevent backup files to even get onto the server, and some best practices. So if you were to actually open up the OWASP methodology, I broke it down into the configuration management testing. And in this section, there's 8 different tests that OWASP recommends. And the one that I have highlighted here, 4.3.6, is the test for old backup and unreferenced files. So what you're doing here is you're going through all these configuration management tests, looking for how the web application handles SSL, TLS testing, if there's any database listeners, infrastructure, configuration management that's wrong, application configuration management, testing for file extensions, then the test that I talked about, if there's any infrastructure or application admin interfaces, and then testing for HTTP methods and XST. So if you actually were to read the exact test for this section, what it breaks down to is saying is that important vulnerability in web applications is not really a vulnerability, but actually just mishandling of files. It's leaving, editing files on the server. It's creating backup files because you're about to change one, or actually even just opening the file in some editor will create a backup file without your knowledge. And if you look at the OWASP test, the test is right there. It's a couple lines in Bash, and what it does is just says, hey server, do you have this file? After I manually put it in. And if you do, just give me the status code. So I looked at this and I said, okay, well let me see what this actually does. And when you put it in there, you can see down at the bottom, index.php, it just tells you 302 found. I had to manually put in that URL. So if I'm doing a web app test and I'm looking at something else, this is hard to do, through an automated process. So that was a problem that I wanted to fix, was have this where I can put in a list of files and say, go through all these and just write me a report. Let me know if you find something. So how do temporary and backup files even get up on your server to begin with? Well, just to give you like a scenario, an administrator logs into the server to edit a file using Nano, right? General text editor on most Linux Unix systems. Excellent. Thank you. You're welcome. The administrator happens to log out, and Nano will leave a .save file. So now the attacker has the ability to go by on your web server and query every file that they found before, like index.php, index.html, well, index.save. Well, most of the time the web browser doesn't know what to do with index.save, or the web server doesn't know what to do with index.save, and just spits out plain text to you. So now an attacker has your whole source code from that. And there's a little picture there. It kind of shows what what .save files are commonly associated with. What about Windows? If you do it on Windows, well, administrator can edit a file and then uploads all the files into the directory. Well, if I'm, on my development server, I'm working, and now I just uploaded everything in my working directory. Well, again, the same thing. The editor might create a .BAK file or a backup file, and that gets uploaded to the server. So now, same thing, web server doesn't know what to do with the backup file, the BAK file, and just displays plain text. So what do backup files kind of look like in the browser? Now this, for my test, what I did is I took Matilde and I took the index.php file and I just copied it to do different file extensions. And in the examples that you see here, index.tilde.hp, you can see the plain text PHP source code for that file. So if an attacker found that, they would have every single function, every call that you're making, how the logic's handled, everything. On the other side, you'll see .php.old. Again, same file, but you get a difference of how the presentation is sent back to the browser. Well, even if you still didn't get the full source code interpretation of it, by looking at the functions and by looking at how the code handles certain things, you can make an educated decision. Just out of the first line there, you can see that the sessions, it's looking for objects in sessions, and it's going to do some kind of randomization. So by looking through whatever the browser does give you, even if it's not full source code, an attacker can pull that information and make an educated guess and still go ahead and attack your web server. So this is why backup files on the server are important to be looked at. So what the tool is going to help you do as a web developer or as a red teamer or as a web server admin, it's going to take a list of the URLs that are usually found during spidering when you're actually going through the website, and then it's going to iterate a list of 502 different extensions on every URL that you found. I found this list from different sources, compiled them, just basically put them in a text file, and all this stuff's going to be on GitHub so that people can help add to this list so that we can find more of these files and help quickly identify this. You can have it dump the output to an HTML file to help you out later for reporting or to easily identify files that may have been found, or to the straight command line. I also given you the ability to test just a single URL or a list of URLs so that you're not consistently having to worry about every one of them, or you can just say, well, I think I know that the system administrator might have edited index that day, and so now I'm going to check the index file and see what happened. So you can see here we tried that index.php file and we found old tilde.hp, tilde.hp and php.old. So the common way that I export URLs, and just to kind of make sure everyone's on the same page, to easily do it is if you're using Burp, and you can use the free or the pro version. You click on the targets tab at the top there, then click on sitemap, right click on your site, and then copy URLs in this host, and you paste this to a general text file. So nothing crazy. You don't have to take minutes of doing any specific script or anything like that to pull these URLs out that you found. Just a couple steps. How can you fit it into your testing? Well, to make sure that you actually catch that file Is it 200? Is it 302? If it is, then flag it. It doesn't look to say, okay, well, here's a common indicator of source code. Like, is there a PHP tag? Is there, variables being defined in there? Is there anything else that would make it identifiable as a source code file? Adding rules behavior. Currently, it'll replace the extension, and it'll add the extension again onto the end. So, like PHP, and then it'll replace that to BAK or old. But it also does, PHP.old, PHP.back. So it adds also there. But what about replacing the file name with a tilde at the front end? Some applications might do that. Or dates. A lot of system administrators put dates on the front end or the last part of the file to show that that's when the file is getting changed. So some of that would help out. A little more exception handling. I minimally baked in some exception handling before making the call or receiving data back to make sure that the program could handle it. But there could be a lot more that could be in there. Timing options. Right now, it just goes as fast as it can. So for some applications that I've tested, that'll bog down the server pretty bad and can cause the actual server to stop responding because it thinks it's getting brute forced. So by putting in timing options, you can delay those calls. Eventually make it into a burp plugin. The guys I kind of work with recommended this. I was kind of between the fence because some of it is in burp, but it's not in burp. And making it a plugin instead of an actual program or something that someone else can run, I feel is you give more control to the users by letting them run it instead of letting some other tool run it. And then same thing with Metasploit, so eventually adding it to Metasploit. So again, I wanted to expand on some of the ideas for the rules. I have up here for adding an extension or change the first letter of the file name, adding dates before the name or after the name. This can help out with finding more files than it currently does by replacing just the last extension of it or adding that other extension. So a demo. Thank you. So just to kind of explain what you're seeing on the screen before I even start, on this side here is the list of URLs that I found. Again, I was using Methodology at the time. On the right-hand screen, on the right-hand side here is going to be, the command prompt and what we're running. Is it playing? Not my computer.
Look, video problems suck.
All right, let's try this. Converting. What did you write? What did you make the
AVI?
I had that issue when I wasn't using VLC and QuickTime was trying to convert everything.
It's all right. I need to eat up time anyways. I was going way too fast.
Does this work?
Yes.
Oh, there we go.
There's a
Hold on.
blinking command prompt.
Oh, that's great. There we Good?
Good?
Yep.
All right, yeah. So just first off, I want to show some of the options here to give an idea of what we can do. Mandatory options, of course, are you have to list a URL or a list of URLs, or the tool's not worth anything. We also have the extensions. You can provide your own extensions. Again, 502 extensions might be a lot for you to try, because again, it's going to ask the web server for every one of those extensions, in the list. So if you want to just try a couple, you can make your own and then have it use that one instead. In the GitHub project, you'll see a small list of 5 extensions, and you'll have the list of the big extensions. You can put the output file there. So if you want to have it put out HTML, it'll put it out for you, and you can look at that later. Or turn on verbose. Right now, really verbose, all it does is kind of prints out the debugging messages that I had encoded in there, so that the user can kind of see what it's going to do, that it's querying this URL, or it's going to, it found this error, and it's moving on to the next one. So again, this was run against Matilde, and I copied the index file to 3 or 4 different extensions.
Do you use mod negotiate at all?
No. Yeah, I haven't tried any anti-type tools like that.
No, mod negotiate, if you ask it without an extension, it'll tell you what extensions exist. So if you say /index, it'll tell you, oh, yeah, there's a 404, but here it's also a PHP file and an HTML file.
That's why I wanted to present it out to the community, is better ideas like that. Because right now it kind of just, you can see it basically brute forces through there with the list of known file extensions.
You may want to also drop question marks. The URL that has question mark in it.
Yeah, you can't really figure out what the end is, yeah.
Maybe.
Bless you. So just the results here, just kind of give you an idea. So here was a list of the URLs that it found 200s on. Again, some of these are going to be false positive until I start developing, or someone else helps and start developing that intelligence behind there, or taking like what Rob said and using the mod negotiation and actually detecting what type of files in there. But it gives you, it gives a user a quick way to say, okay, yeah, I need to really look at these, and you can click them and see what the actual output is.
Yeah, so just the presenter back too.
Mm-hmm. So where has it helped me out? So after I developed the tool and started using it a lot more, some of the things that I actually found was admin access to a CMS after finding a zip copy of the website. So the developer took and said on the server, well, we're about to make a big change, so I'm going to type, zip everything, and I'm going to make it index.zip. Well, again, if you're sputtering through the website and you're looking through, you might not find that because there's no references to it. But the tool knew to look for .zips, and that's how it found one of the .zip files. It was great success. It was a big write-up. They hated me for it, but yeah, not my fault. You did bad practices. So after another one is I was working on this web app, and it was actually pretty secure. I couldn't find any common injection techniques, things like that. But they did the same thing. They labeled users.php to users.old because they made a code change. And again, going through after I was authenticated and I spotted the site, I ran the tool and I found users.old. And looking through the file, I was like, oh, okay, so you're encrypting your file, your ID a certain way, and so now I know this encryption technique, I can modify it. And so I was able to do privilege escalation that way. Another success that it's helped out with is I discovered a web server backup, including the whole server was backed up, and this time they labeled it the site.bak. So by again running the tool, I was able to discover the whole server being backed up, and was able to log into the server with having the password, because Etsy and password were in there. So I mean, it works. It just needs a further development from the community to help out to do things to the degree that it can be, one of those great tools. So I don't want to say my tool's the best or anything like that, because it's far from it. So I wanted to give you guys an idea of what other tools can do compared to what I helped develop. So WFuzz was designed to brute force web applications, and it does directory discovery and URL coding and some parameter fuzzing, but it wasn't. Again, it's fuzzing. So you're trying, .a, .b, .c, .d, .e, and not using common extensions to find files that are known to be backup files. So you're hitting the web server way too much more than you have to. WebScarab, the OWASP project, actually has an automated check, but it only checked for 15 types of backup files. So what if the user was using Nano? I didn't see the Nano extension on there. So now I caught one file that they're not catching. And then WebSlayer, same thing. It's a brute force checker, but from what I've used and seen, it's very time consuming. It uses a lot of processes. You can see there that was a good list of URLs that it just pinged out real quick, tested real quickly. So you don't have to sit there and wait days for this thing. So where to get it? This is right now available on GitHub, and I'm going to start putting more of my red teaming type scripts on there. Help write one that would, when I was doing web testing, I found if I find a bunch of servers, I call it Nikito train. So what it does is it fire off Nikito train, and it'll fire off Nikito against every one of those servers quickly, so you don't have to do it. Again, automating pen testing so that you don't have to babysit your products. So some best practices to kind of give you guys a better idea on what you can go back and tell either your web server admins or your developers, or to think of as a red teamer, is one, don't edit files on the production server to begin with. It's production for a reason. So file editors have to write temporary files, and sometimes they might not remove them. Say you're logged into the server, you're editing the file, and you drop connection. Well, there's no way that the editor is going to know that it needed to close that session. So your temporary file is still there. You go in again, and now you just created a new file handle. Separate the files you intend to copy to your production server and the working directory. So actually separating. If you edited index and index only, put that into a different folder completely, and then upload that into the directory, into your web server, because now you're not copying any hidden files that you might not have been able to see. Not using Git or SVN in the web directory. This was another big one that I found a lot of. As a developer they would upload all their stuff to a private Git repository, then use Git to push all the changes back down. Well, Git and SVN use hidden directories. So if you know to test for those, you can find out the files that way.
Don't tell them to do that.
I know I'm giving
It's
out.
awesome to clone Git and SVN from public web.
Could a .htAccess be used to kind of prevention of that?
Yes, so there's preventions that you could do that too. htaccess would help with that. But again, why
Well, on the developer side, what is a better option?
not putting it on there? Because if there's still ways to get around that. If they misconfigure the htaccess file, you could still get access to
So
it.
you find
What we do
you
is
tell them-
we get to user source, and then we have scripts to install in there.
Yeah.
If you're using SVN, you can use Git export, SVN export rather than checkout, and that just gives you the files rather than the SVN.
Oh, but again, it depends on if the developer was trained correctly or the server administrator.
Someone didn't get the proper training. So
Correct.
what's
More training.
what's the retraining to tell them? Do it this way instead?
Do it the correct way, or best practices, find better application development type stuff. Yeah.
But the question is, what is that better way in this case?
Exactly.
Not tell them to do it better, but like, what is better?
If they're going to do it like you said up there, doing the correct checkout instead of actually doing the clone, so it doesn't put the .svn hidden file in there. So before I jump to question and answers, I just want to, the slides are going to be available, so I wanted to show some reference slides just to kind of give everyone the idea of where some of this ideas come from, and in case you want to further develop talks too about it. So if you've never seen the actual OWASP web application methodology, it's pretty good. They break it down into 11 categories to look at, and each one of those categories have tests. And like we said, I dive into the 4.3 configuration management testing, but each one of them you can look at to thoroughly test out web applications before you have to hire a red team or spend time with the red team to have them test your application. Same thing, web developers or web admins might actually want to look at some of this stuff, so they have an idea what's going to happen. There's the URLs for the codes for the references to the tools that I talked about, and just to give you an idea visually how many extensions are tested, that's only one slide, Rob. There's the other one. So yeah, I mean, everything that I could find, and some of them are repeated, but there's a lot of different extensions. And when I started this project, I was surprised at how many different file extensions there can be that are related to backup files or temporary files. And this is not exhaustive, because I'm sure other people have thought of different ones to add to this. And that's the whole point of adding it to a public repository, is people can say, hey, why don't you add this one or add this, or do something different like mod negotiate to ask the server what there might be files for.
Did you know that Burp also has this functionality?
And I found that out after, but it's only on the paid version.
Right.
Yeah.
Content discovery.
Right, content discovery. So that was the only thing that kind of, I was like, well, I still can give the talk then, because not everyone, wants to pay for paid.
So the problem with the Burp version that does this is that they don't discern between same pages. So let's say you ask for index.php and then index.php.back, and then bob.php, and they're the exact same page because it has a custom 404 or 200 redirect. It'll just start giving you everything in there, and it'll say everything's there.
Right.
So that's the huge problem with that. There's absolutely zero intelligence on it. So right now yours doesn't have the intelligence, but has the option for anyone who knows Python to go ahead and fix that.
Correct, and that's why I kind of wanted to put it out there, is because I know a lot of other people out there can add that intelligence, that they would know how to look easily for how to discern exactly if that's going to be a PHP or if that's a JSP file or ASCX file and things like that. So I'll take some questions about it. Go ahead, up top.
Have you thought about possibly integrating it with the search engine APIs so you can look for these even before you touch the server?
So the question was, have I thought about integrating it with search APIs? That was not on my idea list, but I'll take that one. Go ahead, Rob.
Have you thought about integrating with archive.org?
The question was, have I thought about integrating it with archive.org? No. Yeah, again, this is a real infancy project. I just developed it in about last 2 months. So
one of the things that I wrote a module on Metasploit for is archive.org, where you can tell it a domain and it'll give you every single page that is archived for that page, and then you can take that list and throw it in a tool like this.
oh, cool. Yeah, so that'd be a good way to put the intelligence on there. Check archive or outside sources would be good. Go ahead.
That OWASP methodology, is it on their page?
The question was, is the OWASP methodology on their page? Yes, it is. Yeah, and those I don't think those links are clickable when I put out the presentation. But yeah, you can go on there, type in methodology, and that's where it's from.
That's what I mean, is it explains the details?
Yeah, it's here, and I didn't go into detail. I didn't want to make people fall asleep, but here's the actual blurb from testing how the test for the backup file. So it says an important source of vulnerability lies in files which have nothing to do with the application but are created as consequences of editing applications or after creating on-the-fly backups, or by leaving the web tree old files and unreferenced files. Performing in-place editing or other administrative actions on production web servers may inadvertently leave, as a consequence, backup files, either generated automatically by the editor while editing files or by the administrator who is zipping a set of files to create a backup. So that, again, the inspiration for the tool kind of came from that after reading that, I was like, that makes total sense. But their proof of concept, again, was this, and that's all it gave me. So I was kind of like, well, I don't want to sit here and type URLs all the time. And now I got to think of, like the tool came up with 502 different extensions. Are you going to sit there and type in index.502 extensions and then users.502 extensions? No, it's time consuming. So automating the process makes it easier. And then you can spit out the results in HTML or something like that. Okay, thanks.
This has been a presentation of NoVA Hackers at ShmooCon Epilogue 2014, hosted by Mach37, brought to you by ComputeCycle. Video recording and streaming services provided by Cranial Thunder Productions.